The Black Swift. It was on the third day that Joanna finally saw the bird. Joanna was perched on a boulder, enjoying the warmth of the summer sun and trying not to think about her old school and friends. The splashing of the waterfall nearby drowned out most other noises, so it took Joanna a moment to hear another sound, high pitched and repeated. Plick, 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 plick. Looking around, Joanna saw trees, both evergreen and leafy, and the pool of water at the base of the waterfall that fed a healthy stream running downhill. She also noted the rocky slope of the trail as it led upward behind her, farther into the mountain. Then she heard it again. Plick, 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 plick. Joanna had been to this waterfall twice before. Her family had just relocated to Colorado, and upon their arrival, as the moving van was still being unloaded, Joanna had immediately asked if she could go for a ride to explore her new neighborhood. Take the walkie-talkie with you, her mother had said that day, handing her one of the receivers they often used to communicate back in their old neighborhood. As Joanna pedaled away on her bicycle, she called back, "First, I'll just do some preliminary scouting." The truth was that she was running away. Not literally running away, of course, but getting out of her new house, away from the boxes that needed unpacking, and away from the neighbors who wanted to meet the new girl. She wanted to clear her mind of her worries. Would she like her new school? How would she make friends in this unfamiliar place? Would she be able to adjust? Joanna had seen signs that a state park was nearby, and by luck, she chanced upon one of its trail markers just a mile away. Joanna locked up her bike, read the park rules, studied the maps at the outdoor kiosk, and started hiking up the trail. After a half hour's ascent of fairly steep climbing, she noticed the trail leveled off into a little clearing. It was like a landing halfway up a stairway, insulated by trees and a waterfall cascading into a pool from 20 feet up. The setting was beautiful, and Joanna had felt her fears evaporate amid the soft ferns and the mist of the waterfall. In the following days, when she was not unpacking at home, Joanna had returned several times to this comforting place. Blick, 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 blick. The sound jolted Joanna back to the present. Her watchful eyes now detected movement by the side of the waterfall. Standing slowly and creeping a step closer, she saw that there, clinging to a wet, mossy rock about 12 feet above the pool, was a small bird. The bird tilted its head to study Joanna with one of its large eyes. Its feathers were mostly black, camouflaging its body against the dark, wet rocks. The bird had a gray head the color of soot, and its eyes, two onyx stones, were surrounded with black, as if rimmed in eye makeup. Blick, 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 blick. Now Joanna understood what she was hearing. It must be a call for help. Somehow the little fellow must have become stranded or injured. Perhaps it was unable to fly. The little black bird managed to hang on to the rock despite the slippery moss and being pelted by the spray of the waterfall. The poor thing is probably miserable, Joanna thought, but what can I do? Remembering that the park map showed a ranger station higher up the trail, Joanna began hiking to get help. The trail above the waterfall was a more arduous, rockier climb, but she managed to reach the ranger station. A uniformed ranger in a wide-brimmed green hat stood on the porch, gazing across the canopy of the forest through large binoculars. "I'm really sorry to bother you, but I think there's a bird in distress down at the waterfall. I'm not sure what to do," she said. The ranger, whose name tag read Dan, shook his head. "No bother. Besides, I'm always looking for an excuse to hike down to the waterfall. Let's have a look." Later, approaching the clearing from above, Joanna apologized again. "I'm really sorry to drag you all the way down here." Entering the glade, she looked toward the location where the bird had been. "It was right there," she said, starting to turn crimson with embarrassment. Dan smiled patiently. "That's okay," he said. "Maybe it found a way." Blick, 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 blick. "There it is," said Joanna excitedly. "Did you hear it?" Dan slowly brought a finger to his lips in a shushing gesture and moved backward, away from the waterfall to where the trail led downhill. Once they were a little farther away, Joanna couldn't endure the suspense anymore. "Don't tell me. It's actually a dangerous bird?" she whispered. The ranger's face looked awestruck. "Just fix your eyes on the waterfall," he suggested. A few moments later, a black bird with a gray head and curved wings slowly emerged from behind the watery mist. "I can't believe it," Dan breathed. That's not a dangerous bird, but it is a mysterious one. It's called a black swift. Joanna shrugged and waited for an explanation. Let me put it this way, Dan said. I've been a bird watcher for a long time, and I've never seen one. Black swifts are an unusual birds because they nest only on sea cliffs or behind waterfalls like this one, which makes it hard to observe them in their natural habitat. Joanna watched the bird inching along the rocks. So it's not actually injured? As Joanna spoke, the bird jumped off the rock and disappeared instantly from sight like an arrow shot from a bow. No, Dan laughed. It looks pretty healthy to me. The black swift flies so fast and so high it was once nicknamed the cloud dweller. A bird called a cloud dweller that nests behind waterfalls? Joanna thought. How cool is that? It's fortunate we heard it, said Dan. Black swifts are usually silent, but sometimes around their nests you might hear a flick, 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 flick. The ranger and the girl looked at each other because both had heard the quieter, high-pitched call clearly. It sounds like there's a family of black swifts back there, said Dan. This is a rare discovery. Joanna gazed at the waterfall. This dark, cold, wet environment didn't seem like it would make a good home. And yet this little family of birds was thriving here. They had adapted to a difficult, even treacherous environment to make a home here. She had assumed the bird needed help, but really, it was going to get along just fine.